Hey everyone, welcome back. So today in this video we are going to see the most commonly asked DAX interview questions along with answers which will definitely help you to crack the Power BI interview. Okay, so let's start from the basic DAX question. So what is DAX? DAX is a library. DAX is a library of functions and operators with the help of which we will able to create formulas and expressions in Power BI. Okay, so what is DAX? DAX is nothing but it's a library of functions and operators with the help of which we will create different formulas and expression for Power BI. Okay. So basically when we use this DAX. So DAX is basically used for three things. First is for creating columns, second is for creating tables, and third is for creating measures in Power BI or Excel. Okay. Then the next question is, how would you rate yourself in DAX? This is one of the most important questions that every interviewer asks to you during the interview process. Okay, so before going to the interview, you must prepare for this one. Alright, so let me give the example how you should give the answer of these questions. Alright, so I can say, yes, this is a very interesting question and I can rate myself 7 out of 10 in DAX functions. I can't say I know every DAX functions because DAX is a very vast field and it's not easy to remember all the DAX functions at a time. But I know the basic how we can implement the DAX. So whenever it will required, I can check that from Google and implement the DAX in our Power BI report. Okay, so in this way you will give the answer of these questions. Then the next most expected question is, what all DAX functions have you used in your previous project? So before going to the interview, you must prepare for this question as well, because these are the common questions that every Power BI interview asks to you. Okay, so just remember 10 to 15 DAX functions, and not only remember but also you have to understand how those DAX functions work. Okay, because anytime they can cross questions to you on those DAX, right? So be ready for that. Okay, so the expected answer for this question is, yes sir, I have used so many different type of DAX function for my previous project, and those are replace function, round function, calendar, all, calculate, CalculateTable, format, count, CountX, CountAX, max, maxa, average. All these DAX function I have used whenever it required in my previous project. Okay, so in this way you have to give the answer of this question. Alright, then the next question is, what is the difference between sum and SumX DAX function in Power BI? So the difference is, in case of sum is a aggregate DAX function, so it will work on aggregation mode, okay, which calculate the sum of all numbers in a particular column. Alright, but in case of SumX DAX function, it is a expression based function. It means in this function we can apply some input or we can pass some parameter for doing the calculation. Okay, so we can say SumX DAX functions is used to return the sum of an expression for each row in a table. Alright, that's why here you can see both in case of sum and SumX DAX function return the scalar value. It means they both return a single value. Okay, but in case of sum DAX function, it work on columnar level, whereas in case of SumX, it work on row level. Alright, in case of sum DAX function, expression are not allowed, but in case of SumX, expression is allowed. It means we can pass parameter or any input in the expression section. Okay, then here you can see the syntax of the SumText function, that is sum then column name of a particular table. Okay, but in case of SumX text functions, the syntax is SumX, then you have to pass the table name, then you have to pass the expression name. Okay, so these are the few difference between sum and SumX text function in Power BI. Alright, then the next question is, what is the difference between max, maxa and maxx text function in Power BI? Okay, so in case of max text function, it returns the largest value in a column or between two scalar expression. Okay, and here is the syntax max, then inside the bracket you have to pass the column name. Alright, or you can also write the different syntax, that is max, and then inside the bracket you have to give the expression 1 comma expression 2. Okay, so this is the example, that is max, then inside the bracket you can pass the salary column of the employee table. So what will be the result for this? It will give the maximum salary of the salary column in employee table, right? And in the other hand, if you will pass two parameters inside the max text functions, that is 50 and 100, then it will give you the output as 100, because between these two expressions, that is 50 and 100, the maximum value is 100, correct? So in this way max text function work. All right, on the other hand, it will work with number, text, date data type, but it will not work with boolean data type. So always remember this, max text function is not going to work with boolean data type. Alright, and max text function work with columnar level. Alright, so these are the few things that you have to understand for max text function. Okay, then the next is max a text function. So max a text functions return the largest value in a column. Alright, and the syntax is max, then inside the bracket you have to pass the column name. Okay, for example max then salary column of employee table, so it will give the maximum value of the salary column of the employee table as the output, right? And max a text function work with number, date and boolean data type, but it is not going to work with text data type. Okay, and in the other hand, max a text function also work with columnar level as the max text function. Okay, so this is about max a text function. Then the next is max x text function. So in case of MaxX text functions, it returns the largest value that result from evaluating an expression for each row of a table. Alright, and here you can see the syntax, that is MaxX, then inside the bracket you have to pass the table name, then comma expression. So here is the example, that is max, then inside the bracket you have to pass the table name, that is emp, okay, and then column name, that is emp, inside the bracket you have to pass the salary, right? So you can also provide any filters on this or any expression, for example emp salary equal to 1 lakh, right? So in this way you can write a max x text function. In the other hand, max x text function work with number, text and date data type, but it is not going to work with boolean data type. Alright, and max x text functions work with table level, it is not going to work with columnar level. Okay, and we can also declare any filters in max x text functions. Okay, so these are the few difference between max, maxa and max x text functions in Power BI. Alright, then the next question is, what is the difference between average, average A and average X text functions in Power BI? So let's start with average. So the average text functions return the average of all the numbers in a particular column. Here you can see the syntax. The syntax is average, and inside the bracket we have to pass the column name. Remember, the column that we are going to pass inside the average DAX functions, it must contain the data related to the numeric. It means the data must be the numeric one. Okay, because average DAX function doesn't support logical and text type of data. And in the other hand, if a particular cell contains the zero value, that also average DAX function include this, but it doesn't support logical values and text type of data. Okay, Then let's see about average A DAX function. So average A DAX functions return the average of the values in a particular column, but it can handle the text and non-numeric values as well. As we have seen before, average DAX function doesn't support logical and text type of data, right? But in case of average A, it supports the text and non-numeric values as well. And the syntax is average A, and inside the bracket we have to pass the column name, right? So let's see how the average A DAX functions handle the text and non-numeric values. So here you can see the average DAX functions support the logical value. For example, if it is a true, then it consider as 1, and if it is false, then it consider as a 0. And if it is a text value, then also average A considers this as a 0. Okay. Apart from that, if it's a empty text, then also average A DAX functions considered is as the 0. Okay. And if it is a non-numeric text, then also average A DAX functions count it as a 0 value. Okay. Then the next is average X DAX function. So the average X DAX function is used to calculate the average of a set of expression evaluated over a table. Okay. And here you can see the syntax. The syntax is average X, that is inside the bracket you have to pass two things. One is table name and another thing is expression. Okay. So remember, both the table name and expression arguments are required for average X. Alright. And the another thing is that average X DAX functions follow the same rule as average. You cannot include any non-numeric or null cell here. So this is all about average, average A and average X DAX functions. Okay. Then the next question is, what is the difference between count, count A, count X and count AX DAX function in Power BI? Let's understand first about count DAX function. Okay. So count DAX function is used to count the number of cells in a column that contain non-blank values. Alright, that contain non-blank values. It means count DAX functions count the rows of a particular column that contain numbers, dates and string data type values. It will not take into consideration for those rows which contain blank and boolean data type. Alright. And here you can see the syntax of the count DAX functions is count, then inside the bracket you have to pass the column name. Right. So this is about count DAX function. Whereas in case of count A DAX function, count A functions also used to count the number of cells in a column that are not empty. It means count A functions calculate number, text and boolean, but it will exclude the blank values. Alright. And here is the syntax, that is count A, and inside the bracket you have to pass the column name. Alright. Then let's move to the count X DAX function. So count X DAX function is also used to count the number of cells in a particular column that contain numbers, date or text or string. Okay, but it exclude blank and boolean values. Alright. Whereas in case of count AX DAX functions, it is also used to calculate the number of cells in a particular column, but it take consideration into numbers, text and boolean values, but it also exclude the blank values. Alright. So these are the main difference between count, count A, count X and count AX DAX function. Alright. Then the next question is, what is the difference between GroupBy and Summarize DAX function in Power BI? So let me clear you first. Both GroupBy and Summarize DAX functions are used to extract the data from a table in Power BI. Alright. But the difference is that in case of GroupBy, the GroupBy DAX functions cannot do implicit calculations. Okay. That's why we take the help of current group function. It means whenever you are using the GroupBy DAX functions to do the implicit calculations, we have to add another functions called as the current group inside the GroupBy function. Okay, but in case of summarized DAX functions can do implicit calculations. So we do not need to use any helping function for executing the summarized DAX function. Okay, so these are the main difference between GroupBy and summarized DAX function in Power BI. Alright. Then the next question is, what is TopN DAX function in Power BI? So TopN DAX function is basically used to return the top n rows of a specified table. It means suppose we have a table having 100 number of records, and if I just want to see only 5 records from that particular table, so in that case we will use TopN DAX functions in Power BI. Okay, so here you can see the syntax of TopN, that is TopN, and inside the bracket you have to give the n value. It means the number of records you want to see. Okay, here you can see this is the n value. It means this is the first parameter, and for this you have to pass a value on that. It means how many numbers of record you want to see. Okay, and second parameter is table name. Table name means from which table you want to extract those rows. Okay, and next is order by expression. Okay, so in which order you want to see the data. These are the three parameters that you have to pass in top and DAX functions. First is n value. It means the number of value you or number of records you want to see. Okay, and from which table you want to see, you have to give the name of that particular table here. And third is the order by expression, in which order you want to see the data. Okay, so this is the use of top and DAX function. All right. Then the next is all DAX functions. So let's understand when we will use this all DAX function in Power BI. Okay. So basically all DAX function is used to return all the rows in a table or all the values in a column by ignoring any filter that might have been used in that particular table or in that particular column. Okay. So in short, all DAX function is used to remove all the filters from a table or from a column. Alright. So where we want to remove all the filters from a particular table or from a column, because sometime when you are doing the calculations at that time, suppose we don't want any filter on that particular table or on that particular column of that table. Okay, so at that time what we have to do, so for that we have to apply all DAX functions. Okay, so when we will apply this all DAX functions in that calculations, it will do, first of all it will remove all the filters from that particular table or from that particular column. Okay, then it will do the calculations on the basis of the entire data of the table, right? So at that place we use the all DAX functions. All right, these functions removes the corresponding filters from the filter context, just as remove filters does. Okay, so the use of all DAX functions and remove filters DAX functions are the same one. Okay, both are used to remove the filter from a particular table or from a column. So here you can see the syntax of the all DAX function. For that, first of all you have to write the all keyword. Okay, then inside the bracket you have to pass column name or the table name from where you want to remove all the filters, right? So this is the use of all DAX function in Power BI. Then the next DAX function is AllExcept DAX function. Okay, so AllExcept DAX function is basically used to remove all the context filter in a table except the filter that have been applied to a specified column. In short, if we have multiple filters in a column and to get a value you want to remove all the filters, but you want to keep only one filters in this column. So in that case, this function, it means this all except DAX function is more helpful for you. Okay, and here you can see the syntax of this all DAX functions. That is, first of all you have to write the keyword called all except, and inside the bracket you have to pass two things, that is table name and column name, where table name means the table over which all context filters are removed except filter on those columns that are specified in the subsequent argument. Okay, whereas Column name means one or more columns that are specified for which context filter must be preserved. And another thing is that remember this all except text functions can return an entire table or a table with one or more columns. Okay, so here you can see the example of this all text function. Then the next one is all selected text functions. So in Power BI, when we want to return all the row in a table or all the values in a column by ignoring any filter that have been applied inside the query but keeping the filters that come from outside. So in this case, the best DAX functions that we have to use is called as the all selected DAX function. Okay, and here you can see the syntax of this all selected text functions. That is, first of all you have to write the keyword all selected, and inside the bracket you have to pass the table name or that may be the column name. Okay, from where you want to remove all filters that has been applied within the query. Okay, and the next point is the return type for this all selected text function is that may be an entire table or a table with one or more column. Alright, so this is all about all selected text function. Okay, then the next is what is calculate text function in Power BI. So basically, calculate DAX function is used to evaluate an expression in a context modified by the filters. Okay, it means suppose we want to calculate something from a particular table by applying some filters on that. Okay, so in that case we use this calculate DAX functions. Okay, and the return type of this calculate DAX function is a scalar value. Scalar value means it's a single value. Alright, and remember this calculate DAX functions is a very commonly used DAX function in Power BI. Okay, so this is one of the most important DAX function. And here you can see the syntax of this calculate DAX functions. So for that, first of all you have to write the keyword calculate, and inside the bracket you have to pass two things. One is expression and another thing is filter. Okay, so you can apply more number of filters on this calculate DAX functions if you need. Alright, so for example, suppose we have a table called as the orders. Okay, and inside this orders table we have a column called as the cells. So if you want to calculate the total cells of this orders table by applying the filters on region equal to east, it means you want to see the total cells of the orders table where region equal to east, right? So at that time you have to write this calculate DAX functions. So calculate, and inside the bracket you have to write the sum, then you have to pass the column name, then close the bracket, then give the comma, and after that you have to specify the filter, that is region equal to east. Okay, so in this way we can use the calculate DAX function in Power BI. So remember this is one of the most important DAX function. Okay, then the next most important DAX function is calculate table DAX functions. So what is calculate table DAX functions? So as we have already learned about calculate DAX functions, right? So calculate and calculate DAX functions both are completely same. Okay, but the only difference in between these two is in case of calculate DAX functions it returns a scalar value. It means it returns a single value, whereas in case of calculate table DAX functions it returns a entire table. Okay, it returns a table of values. Alright, so here you can see the calculate DAX functions is basically used to evaluate a table expressions in a context which is modified by the given filters. Okay, suppose we have a table. Okay, and in this table we have 100 number of records are there, and in from that table I want to extract another sub table. Okay, based on some criteria or by applying some filters on that, right? So in that case we will apply the calculate table DAX functions. So calculate table DAX functions is basically used to extract a sub table from a existing table. Okay, and here you can see the syntax of this calculate table DAX functions, that is calculate table, and inside the bracket you have to pass two things. One is expression and second is filter. Okay, And here you can see the example of this CalculateTable DAX function. Then the next DAX functions that we are going to learn is calendar DAX functions. Okay, so calendar DAX functions is basically used to create a calendar table in Power BI based on the starting date and ending date provided. It means calendar DAX function is used to create one table, okay, which contain a column date, and inside the date the value is in between the start date and the end date. Okay, so here you can see the syntax of this calendar table. So for this, first of all, you have to write this keyword called as the calendar, and inside the bracket you have to pass two things, that is start date and end date. Okay, so for example, if you want to create a table called as the August 2019 calendar table, alright, so for that, first of all, you have to write the keyword calendar here, okay, and inside the bracket you have to pass two things, that is start date and the end date, right? So in place of start date, you have to write the keyword date first, and inside the bracket you have to pass the start date of the August month, right? So this is 1st August 2019. Okay, and after that you have to give the comma, then you have to pass the second argument, that is end date, right? So this is the end date. First of all, you have to write the keyword date, then inside that you have to pass the values, that is 31st August 2019. Okay, so what will be the output for this DAX functions? This calendar DAX functions will create one table called as the August 2019 calendar. Okay, and inside that table it will create one column called as the date, and inside that particular date column it will contain the value starting from 1st August 2019 to 31st August 2019. Okay, so remember one thing, this calendar DAX functions return a table with single column, okay, with single column name is the date, right? And it containing a continuous set of dates. The range of the date is from the specified start date that you have applied here to the specified end date. Okay, and also it will include the both the start date and the end date in this particular column. So this is all about the calendar DAX function in Power BI. Okay, then the next DAX function is CalendarAuto DAX function. Okay, so let me clear you first. The functionality of the calendar DAX function and CalendarAuto DAX function is completely same. Okay, so the only difference is that in place of calendar DAX functions we have to pass two arguments inside the bracket, one is start date and another is end date, right? But in case of CalendarAuto DAX functions we do not need to give any parameter inside that. Okay, it will automatically create a calendar table for you which contain a column called as date, and inside the date column the range of the dates is calculated automatically based on the data in the model. It means suppose you have imported one table previously, and inside the table we have a column called as the date, right? So CalendarAuto DAX function, what it will do, it will automatically go to that particular column which contain the date type of data and figure it out the maximum value and the minimum value from that particular column. Okay, and based on that range it returns a table with a single column named as date, which containing a continuous set of data, and the range of data is calculated automatically based on the data in the model. Okay, so this is the only difference between the calendar and CalendarAuto DAX functions. Alright, so these are the few commonly asked DAX interview questions that you must know before going to the interview. And apart from this also you have to Google it out what are the other questions that the interviewer can ask during the Power BI interview. Okay, so all the very best and best of luck for your upcoming interview. Take care, bye bye.